Hello, my name is Simone Arena. I'm a principal TME in the enterprise networking business. And in this short video, I want to take you through the deployment of a Catalyst 9800-CL, which stands for cloud, in a private cloud environment, specifically in an ESXi VMware environment. So we're going to go through the steps to bootstrap the VM, which basically means giving the basic configuration to the VM, and then use the date zero web GUI to make the controller operational. This is very important because VMware, in general VMs, and particularly ESXi and VMware, it's a very easy way to get a 9800 up and running in your lab and play with it. When we talk about VMware ESXi, we are basically talking about two environments. One is the vCenter, so you're using this software to manage multiple hosts where you have your workloads, your VMs, or the direct host vSphere, which is the software to just handle one host. Most of our customers would use the vCenter, so I'm going to focus on this software. But I realize that many of you will have only one server and hence use the direct host approach, so I will refer to that as we go through. The other thing before jumping into the demo is that when you go to CCO, there are multiple file formats available for you to download. The -OVA is the recommended option for VMware ESXi deployment because basically it contains a template with the VM configuration based on that specific release of software. And also for vCenter only, and I will highlight this during the demo, we have an additional guided workflow to completely avoid you touching the CLI for these VMs. And also with the OVF template, we are also pushing some default configuration, which is basically enabling HTTP and HTTPS server, SCP for secure copy, SSH allowing only SSH on the line VTY, and then using enabling netconfig, which is important for example, to manage this controller through Prime or DNA Center. So let me quickly jump to the demo. So I have my ESXi server. So I will select the host and deploy the OVF template. So I have previously downloaded the file from CCO. This is the latest 16.10.1e, which is the recommended release. And at this moment, so let me click here. We'll just give it a name. So let's call it test. And for me to remember which IP address I give, I put in brackets the number 13. All right, so here we select the source. I have only one, so it's easy. Validating the package, that all the configuration is correct. And then will prompt me to review the details. Perfect, the version is the one that I wanted, the controller, name and everything, and now I can go and select the configuration. So instead of having multiple VA template, we now have one where you can select the basically the configuration of the VM based on the scale. So you don't have to worry about how many CPUs. Those are automatically selected as you choose the scale. So in this case, 1K, it's the smallest one for me. Again, validating, selecting the storage, let me just select the default. Now, this is a very important piece. So here is where you map the source network, which is the interfaces on the controller, to the destination virtual network on your vSwitch that you would have to have configured before. So this gigabit 1, you can map to any interface. What is very important is that each of this interface will be needs to be mapped to a different destination network. If you map to the same destination network, then you may run into network problems because of spanning tree, duplicate packets, and loops, and hence ESXi will shut down your vSwitch, which basically can result in you losing connection to your vCenter as well. So very important. For me, the gigabit 1, I want this to be connected to my out-of-band management, because I do have a out-of-band management. Trunk is for the second one. The second one is where I will have my wireless management and my other, centralized client VLAN. And so I wanted to put it as a trunk, so it's connected as a trunk, and then I will use the third one in case I want to deploy an HA pair. I'm going to use it to a RP, so redundancy port switch, which is a dedicated switch, just internal switch. It doesn't have any connection to the external interfaces because I have only one server, and if I want, I can deploy the HA on the same host. Okay, so this is in common with vCenter and ESXi, so you would have to do the same. So at this point, you are basically forced to have three interfaces. So the OVF template comes with 3 interfaces. So even if you don't need the interfaces, what is recommended is that you connect to a dummy switch, not connected externally, and and then click next. But it's important to map it to a different vSwitch. Okay. Right. Now this part is a customized template where we can push additional configuration to the VM. And this is available only on vCenter. So let's call this test and C9800-test, password, type the password, then I can type some network settings. So my management interface, which is the device management interface, if you remember, I mapped this gigabit 1 to out-of-band management network. So here I'm going to give it an IP address in that network, 10.58.55.13, and then /24 to identify the subnet. I need the gateway, 54.55.254, and this is another important aspect. So I have this remote network, I have a remote network that I want to manage this VM from. So I need to be able to get back to that network from the VM. So here, by adding this route to the whole 1058, which is my out-of-band management network /16, I'm basically configuring a static route in my controller to go back to that remote management network, pointing, of course, to my default gateway. Here I have my username and password, which will be added with privilege 15. Again, that's important because of the GUI requires privilege 15, and so does netconf and yang, so it's important, and this is automatically taken care of, you don't need to. So you can, you can verify before applying. It's important. Make sure you have this 3 different switches. Again, if you're not using one of this or 2 of this, use a dummy switch so that you don't have any problem. The other thing is checking. There is no internal check. We cannot verify that this is a correct IP address. So make sure you have the right IP address configured, and then you can finish. So this will take a little bit to deploy. So as we wait for this, let me also show you another important setting, which is regarding this the switches, the virtual switches. So of course for the trunk, I need to be able to set it as VLAN trunking and allow all the VLAN. The other important setting is the security. For promiscuous mode and forged transmit, put the setting to accept, so that it can accept traffic going out of the interface and coming back. Okay. Now we'll go back to the VM and see if it's actually it's completed. Okay, so let's then start the VM, and then here you'll see that it will start in a second. Okay, so here we want wait. We'll just pause here and come back when it's done. Okay, so now it has finished booting, so I get the prompt with the name that I put in before. So here I can log in with my password. Okay, so if I do show run IP interface brief, show IP interface brief, I will see that my gigabit 1 has been configured with 10.58.55.13. Show IP route will show me also the static route that I have set, and also very important, show run interface gigabit 1. The interface is configured as a layer 3 interface. This is right now enforced at a template point of view, while the other 2 are switch ports, and that's at this point we haven't configured gigabit 2, but that is a layer 2 port by default. So in case I don't have vCenter, what happens? So with vCenter you cannot push this additional information. By the way, what is also important is that, as you can see, as we go through the configuration, that netconf is being pushed here, as you can see, right? And as we said, the route, the HTTP server, the HTTP secure server, and last thing, the input SSH to log in via SSH. Okay, this same thing will happen in if you just have you don't have vCenter, you just have the host. In this case, you will not have the possibility to configure the additional parameters. So here, same thing. If you do show run interface gigabit 1, you have to remember that this interface is a not switch port. So if you want to configure this as a trunk or configure it as a layer 2 port and then configure an SPI and give it an IP address, you have to do this manually. Okay, so you have to come to the CLI to do this in case you don't have vCenter. So then you give an IP address, you give a route or a default route, and then you are able to connect to the box via the GUI. So the GUI is it's the preferred method because we have made it very simple. So let's connect to the newly created VM. Here I'm going to use the same username and password that, if you remember, I configured in during the Bootstrap. And since the box has never been configured before, it will prompt me to the date 0, which is a facilitated GUI and workflow to configure the minimal commands and configuration to have the controller operational, which means clients can, APs can join, and optionally client can join as well if you configure SSIDs. So here you have your deployment mode, which can be either standalone, active, in an active standby, or standby. As you can see, the standby is very simple. You define that, you choose the interface that you have chosen for your RP, in my case was gigabit 3, and then you give a local IP and subnet, and the remote, which would be the active. For the active is just the same exactly as a standalone plus this high availability settings. So let's just configure a standalone. So you select the country code, and this is basically the parameter that, if configured, will not prompt you to the date 0, because we say if someone has gone in and configured a country code, it means that he knows what he's doing, so I don't have to go through the setup wizard again. Okay. Then you basically select the time zone, NTP servers if you have. This is all optional. What is mandatory is have a wireless management interface. Okay, so this is another source of confusion that I would like to clarify. Right now, the date 0 GUI expects to choose another interface from the one that you have connected. So in this case, we connected through the gigabit 1, which was the out-of-band management. So it will allow me to choose the wireless management only between 2 and 3. Okay, so I'm choosing 2. Here I want this to be a trunk, so I specify VLAN 172.16.201.13. I give it a subnet. Sorry, give it a subnet. Give it optionally a default gateway, but in this case, I do want a default gateway because that's my wireless management interface to talk to the rest of the world. If I want, I can configure my IPv6, but I just, in the interest of time, I'm gonna click next. Here again, if I want, I can define a WLAN. From here, I'm just gonna click next and show you this other important thing. So for the 9800-CL on the VM, we need a certificate for the APs to join. So you can have your own PKI, an old certificate authority, and hence you can click no here, but then you have to go on the controller, right, on once the wizard is done, and configure that. If you want, we can use a trust point, so an auto-generated certificate for the APs to join. All you need to do is to have to put a password here. Now, you need a wireless management, and you need that wireless management interface to be up. So you need to have correctly configured the wireless management. Then here again, you click summary, where you can review your settings, and then you click finish. Now he's going to verify this configuration, connect to the box, and push this configuration. Now that's the other important thing of having a separate interface, because since we are using an out-of-band management interface to reach the VM, this communication is maintained to the box. So now when the configuration is applied, here in the top right of the configuration successfully applied. It will allow me to have this message because that session is maintained. So now I got prompt again to log in, but this time, since I have configured the country code, it will not go to the date 0, but it will prompt me to the day 1 dashboard. Okay, and if I go back here, also I can see that if I do show wireless management interface, show wireless management trust point, I have my certificate which is available, and I'm ready to go. So basically now the controller is full operational, APs can join, and then I can go and configure the SSIDs. And this concludes my short demo. Thank you.